Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Hammer. I am here with the daily mortgage rate update on Thursday, August. I almost said April, August 7th, 2025. I'm trying to roll back the year. The year's gone by too quick. Anyway, good morning, y'all. Great to have you here. If you're here this morning, say good morning. If you're watching the replay, don't forget, give me hashtag replay. Today, we're going to be talking about, man, I don't know. We're going to talk about smelling salts in the NFL, I guess. There's really not much to talk about when it comes to rates and pricing. So, we're going to talk about how there's not much to talk about until there's something to talk about. How about that? Anyway, remember you join me live each and every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Mike Tebow, Brandy Brickler, Mike Brown. Good morning, y'all. Deb Dickinson, Mike Morano. A lot of mics going on today. Amy Blauser, Randy Tickle. Giddy up, sir. Angela Walters. Good morning, y'all. Hope you guys are all doing well. If you're here this morning, say good morning. If you're watching the replay, remember hashtag replay in the comments. Michael Love, good morning. Bill Stevens, what's up, sir? Mallory Fotiadis, good morning. Don't forget, smash that like button if you're on Facebook, tag an originator friend. If you're on YouTube, subscribe and give us the thumbs up kind of a thing. If you want a quick text alert that I'm going live each morning so that you don't miss any of the show, even though today you're going to say, Hammer, you could have missed the show. Really, not much. I know. Hey, I can only work with what we've got, right? But anyway, hmmr.io/reminder, or use this cool QR code right here, and we'll go ahead and get you signed up. Also, if you'd like a daily lock advice email to your inbox each and every weekday morning, get that at ratelockadvice.com. And if you want to check out our text alerts, you can check those out at ratetextalerts.com. They're the only thing that I've talked about so far that actually costs you a little bit of money. They're $7 a month, but go check them out. So anyway, good morning, Monica Dinkins, Julie Lawrence, Rob Smith, Rob Stewart. And who is the veteran mortgage wingman? What's your name? Give it to me in the comments. I can't tell who that is. Looks familiar, though. Tim Klyla, good morning, sir. Ron Siegel says today is National Raspberries and Cream Day. Who likes some raspberries and cream? Sounds good to me. I'd eat it. I'm good. I'd go with it. So, all right. Well, good morning, y'all. Let's go ahead and dive in where we're at and go over the good stuff here. So, checking this out this morning, mortgage bonds currently up a few basis points on the day. As you can see here, what happened to my Presentify? Here we go. As you can see here, we are currently up 5 basis points. Not anything amazing. If you look at the candlestick chart here, you still see an upward movement, which is a good thing. You know, that definitely is going to give us a little bit of a smile on our face. However, it's not really quite as rosy as it looks here. You're at 100.23, 100.22, 100.28. I'm kind of nervous about this. I don't think we'll lose enough ground that they'll reprice worse, but I do think we could see this drop back down and see it kind of hold steady around that 100.20-ish, 100.21 mark there. 10-year treasury yield, though, you see this is actually working its way higher. And the yield, 10-year treasury yield is opposite of mortgage pricing. We don't want to see this move higher. So this is actually would give you a frowny face right here. So it's a small movement, 4.19, 4.21, 4.22, 4.23. I'm not rounding. I'm just giving, but you can see it's the 10-year treasury yield kind of telling us, hey, this bond rally is losing steam and not really going anywhere. But quick recap of what happened yesterday. Let me go ahead and get you those bonds had a brief dip yesterday. You can see it right here. It was a little bit of an odd, and there was no clear argument over why it was happening, but we did see them kind of drop back down, come back up, but it did come back up within a few minutes. So it's almost like we could just kind of pretend it didn't exist, right? Because it really doesn't affect the day. Taking a look at where we were the rest of the day, we ended the day a little bit higher than where we were when pricing came out, right about here. It is a small move higher. So again, that does give us a very little smiley face, but we do have it. Hey, let's take it. This morning, you can see we are actually up a little bit again. We were up 10, now we're up 4 basis points. But again, it's really flattening. We're definitely, in my opinion, we're seeing things settle down on this rally. So rate sheets today are going to be about the same as yesterday, maybe a smidge better. Let me make this a little smaller. Let's go ahead and take a look at rate sheet pricing, and I'll move this over. All right. Taking a look here at at pricing. You could see that rate sheet pricing struggling to improve much. 6.57, 6.58, 6.57 today. Again, 6.57, maybe 6.56, right? If you're using Mortgage News Daily and we want to keep consistent way of creating that number. Again, it is better than what we had earlier in the month, maybe a quarter point, and that's about where it's going to stay. Reprice risk on the day is low. There's nothing big going on. We've already gotten the jobless claims this morning. Nothing else really going on. In fact, I didn't even look at those. Let's take a look together. Jobless claims. Let's see. Where did jobless claims come in? They tick up in the latest week, continuing to rise to the highest since the end of 2021. Look at these headlines. They're so clickbaity. Rises to the highest. What is it like? Probably like rose by 38,000. Recurring applications surged. This actually is worth paying attention. Surged to the highest since November 21, according to the Labor Department data. Recurring applications means the people that are continuing to stay on unemployment versus new applications, which are people that recently lost their job and are going on unemployment for the first time. So the recurring filings, this is something that's going to support the idea of a weakened labor market, and that supports the idea of Fed rate cuts and all that. So we'll see where that goes. Otherwise, I mean, the outlook, bonds and rates, they're going to take their direction from the CPI data next week. That's really what we're waiting on. There's not much else going on. When you take a look at the headlines, it's all the normal stuff. Trump this, Trump that. Politics aside, who else notices that Trump is in a lot more headlines than Biden ever was? And I'm curious on why, but he seems to have his finger in everything and his name connected to everything, but Trump's tariffs, Trump and Putin, Trump and Harvard. I mean, it's all over the place here. So the tariffs are still talk, trade war, all that stuff. Not really a huge effect on rates and pricing right now, though. Let's see. What are y'all chatting on? So let's see. Randy said, Mark Clark. There you are, Mark. What possible factors could give the market reasons to rally? And let's see what Ron said, and then I'll give you my input. Small business is going to cause some problems going forward, primarily due to tariffs. The big companies can buy their way to tariff exemptions, but small businesses lack the financial resources. Just look what happened with Apple yesterday. Invest $100 billion, get tariff exemptions. Yeah, and you look at what the latest thing is with the Trump with the chips. If someone commits to building something, they're not even really doing anything, but if they commit to it, you'll see that there. To answer, what possible factors could give the market reasons to rally? I don't know how much more of a rally we're going to get. Again, look at what the expectation is. When we went back and we saw rates that were super, super low over here in September of 24, remember that? The lowest rates that we saw? The expectation here wasn't just that we were getting Fed rate cuts. Why were we getting Fed rate cuts? The idea was that the economy was pushing down and the recession word was being used back then. And when it became apparent that we weren't going into a recession and the Fed did start cutting rates, our mortgage bond pricing went up. Mortgage rates went up because mortgage bonds went up. And you can see where we're at right now. And we're kind of at that lowest level. We kind of touched it a little bit here. But we're at that lowest level since then, and I'm walking on eggshells. So I don't know that you're going to see a strong rally. The labor market data was weak enough that if the CPI inflation data doesn't show a lot of inflation, I think we get a bump. I don't know that we're going to get a super strong rally. But I'm concerned if we see pullback on the idea of 3 Fed rate cuts this year. Look at what markets are currently pricing in and compared to what they were pricing in. So this is December. We're looking at December Fed meeting, right? And when we look at this December Fed meeting, remember, the lighter the bar, the farther out it was. So this is like a month ago. A month ago, the expectations of 2 rate cuts was big. And then a week ago, it had dropped to, um, expectation of maybe 1 cut, possibly 2. And then since then, we're seeing, I mean, look at this expectation, 3 rate cuts. I don't know that we really are going to see the conditions. And that's because of the labor market revisions. We've talked about that before. So the idea that the labor market is super softening and the economy will go with it, that's what drove this activity. So in order to see mortgage rates continue to move lower, we would need to see conditions that push the 10-year treasury yield a little bit lower and push mortgage bonds, kind of narrow that margin between the 10-year and mortgage-backed securities. So Deb said probably because Biden wasn't in charge of anything. Yeah, I agree. That was kind of where I was going, Deb. I was thinking the same thing. I think that Biden was more of a front man. I don't feel that he was making a lot of the decisions. And Trump likes using his name, everywhere, and is actively got his fingers in everything. So, um, will I continue to tell my clients in regards to what's moving markets? We have a very loud administration. The noise that comes out can be a market mover. I've noticed in the last 7 months when things get really loud, my applications slow down. When things are quiet for a week or two, my applications really jump. Yeah, yeah, I could agree with that. Thank you, Randy, for that. Biden didn't do anything when he was president. In my opinion, Trump is changing or sticking his nose and everything. Yeah, for better or worse, I don't think you can argue with it. I don't like everything he does, but he certainly does things. I definitely do agree with you, Tim, that it is also an ego thing. Yeah, there's definitely a part of that too. But he doesn't put his name in the papers. The papers put his name in the papers. So, Ron said, I don't think you could really talk about the number of cuts. It's more important to talk about the size of the cuts. My bet September will be a 50 basis point. That's gained more momentum. There's been more talk about September possibly being a 50 basis point cut like it was a year ago. September's going to have huge revisions downward because of the birth death model. So you're talking about the small business birth death model and the fact that labor market stuff. So it's possible. We'll really have a better idea when we get the September. It's actually the August jobs data on September 5th. So we'll really get an idea there. But we could see rates. And here's my thing: I don't think it really changes the market, but it changes perception. If rates, especially like your govies are right there, right around that six-ish mark. If rates do fall in the loan of sixes that people can buy their way into the fives, that's going to spur some activity, and it could save us from seeing a correction in home prices. There's definitely conditions now where the market is moving more towards a buyer's market, but it's not a buyer's market even still. But there's a lot of buyer fatigue. And again, we're going to go through this for another few years. We are not getting out the other side. The government really messed up our markets when the reaction and things that happened after COVID. So not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it did happen. And we're going to spend a lot of time, getting out of there and getting fixed. But I do think, again, right now you see mortgage-backed securities, 3 basis points, a little bit lower than where we were at before. I think we are capping out here. My advice remains the same as it was yesterday, which is to go ahead and start the day floating, but consider locking near term and risk averse. I think it's there. Randy, how would a 50 basis point cut affect mortgage rates? It would be big. It would be big because it would help rates to improve because it would signal that the Fed was much more dovish in reaction to recent data. I don't think we'll get a 50 basis point cut, but if we did get a 50 basis point cut, you would see markets react to that because we haven't priced in a 50 basis point cut. So the idea here is when we look at, what's currently priced in, 4.25, this is a single cut. Markets are basically pricing in a September cut. They're not even remotely. When we see another column show up here, look, I can do a little box. There you go. So when we see another column show up here, that would then be, let's see if I can kind of pretend to fill it in here. That would then show you that we would see rates react to that and improve to the idea that we would get. So if we got an unexpected 50 basis point cut, that would be big. But before we actually got that cut, you would see mortgage rates go down on the way to that cut, because the speculation would grow here in the Fed futures that we would see a possibility of a cut, to this column. If we start to see a column grow there, you'll see mortgage rates that are improving slightly on that data. So on that expectation. Buyer's market in Colorado for certain price homes, at least today, got an appraisal for $672,000 for a house being sold at $650,000. Yeah, that is good. Problem is that the $650,000 is tomorrow's appraisal, and that's where we get an issue. Randy said lots of home price softening currently being seen. Again, it's very much market by market, though. You're talking about a Texas market when you say that. We're not seeing that. Yesterday, I forgot who it was that said about in like Washington. I'm not seeing it here in Western North Carolina. We're not seeing it in New Jersey. These are markets I'm more familiar with. So good morning, Mr. Mahan. You can watch from the beginning, sir. By all means. That's the cool thing about YouTube is you can actually back it up to the beginning. BLS showed 247,000 jobs gained due to the birth death model. ADP, so we only gained 104,000. Yeah, watch Tim Ross for a preview of the 50 basis point cut if it's coming. As we get closer, we're not even anywhere near a blackout period yet, so the Fed members will still be talking. Mickey Bowman's talking on Saturday. The Fed members definitely are out there in voice. And speaking of rate cuts, if we take a look at what happened with the Bank of England, they had to do a double vote, which was a rarity, an oddity. Let's see. Nope. Where's maybe Reuters? Nope. Where is the Bank of England? I had this up for United because they suck. I don't remember where that went. Sorry, guys, but Bank of England did end up. Here it is. Bank of England cut rates to 2-year low after an unprecedented revote because they actually had 4-4 and 1, so they had somebody abstain. It's like a tie, and the tiebreaker didn't do their thing, so they had to vote again. But they did decide to cut rates, and they cut them a quarter point. And, again, they're struggling with the idea of cutting rates because of inflation as well. So that's why our Fed, as much as everyone makes fun of them, I don't think they're too far off. But let me throw the lock advice up there one more time, and then we'll wrap it up. Let's see. Start the day off floating. If no improvement, consider locking near term. Anything closing the next couple weeks. I wouldn't be floating loans that are closing soon into the inflation data unless you're totally willing to just gamble, because we don't know what it'll be, and we don't know how the markets will react, and that's going to happen next Tuesday. So you've got some time. We got time today. Tomorrow, it's still summertime in the city. You're going to see a quiet day. You're not going to see a lot of action. Things are going to be quiet today. They're going to be quiet tomorrow. Monday, we'll see a little bit of movement. Tuesday is the inflation data, and it's not going to spark like some huge rally or some big sell-off, but you'll definitely see it have an effect that day. And that's really the next, if we're going to see rates improve a little bit and get that next edge, that's where it's going to have to come from. So that's what we got for you. Well, thank you all for joining me. Appreciate you being here. Hope you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.